Hello and welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Dream Chasers Ground Zero. Today I have with us Halle Nerone. Halle, would you mind just sharing a story of a personal ground zero moment with us and kind of piggybacking off of that, just kind of telling us some of the things that you learned along the way to help you get to where you are today?
Yeah, for sure. So, oddly enough, I would say my ground zero moment was probably the beginning of this semester, which is my last semester of undergrad. I've always went through college pretty easily. The work got hard sometimes, but it was never really something I couldn't handle. But this semester, I had a summer internship and it got extended. So I was like, yes, I want to do it. And then, I had what I thought was going to be an easy course load that turned out to be one of the most hectic ones that I've had. So about the third week of classes this semester, I just had a realization one night that I was not going to get my assignments done on time, and that is so unlike me. So, I was feeling really disappointed in myself, and I knew that, the way I was trying to get my work done now and the way I was trying to keep up with my schedule just wasn't sustainable. So I called my mom freaking out. I'm like, I don't know what to do. I physically can't get my work done even if I stay up all night. And I was just really starting to feel disappointed in myself. So, I at that moment I was like, I don't know if I can finish literally my last semester of undergrad. And I was just having a really hard time with that. But it has taken some weeks to get back on my feet and kind of figure out what needed to change because I think up until that point, I was taking advantage of every opportunity that I possibly could, which a lot of our, professors and mentors tell us to do. And I think I just reached the point where I had taken advantage of every opportunity that I think I could have, but I needed to make a change where I was kind of cutting out what, I wasn't truly passionate about or what I didn't think would benefit me in the long run. And as someone who likes to do anything and everything, that was a really hard adjustment for me to make. And I'm still kind of going through that, but things have gotten a lot better since.
Yeah, absolutely. I think really a lot can be said for those of us that don't exactly know how to say no to certain opportunities.
Mhm.
And really, one way or another, we usually find out that there's only so much we can get our hands into.
Right.
And, sometimes that, can be handled quickly and easily. Other times there's a blazing ball of glory that everything goes down into. But yeah, especially for those of us that are really just trying to, basically find any resume builder there is out there. Um, those of us for sure really kind of struggle sometimes to see where that line is as far as like how much more we can bring on and how much more, like we want to add to the plate.
Mhm.
And really, you never know what that's going to look like. Like you said, really, you thought this was going to be an easy course load for this semester. Ironically, I'm actually in a similar scenario. I even took one less course this semester thinking that it was going to be a lot easier, but ironically I'm spending just as much time if not more than
Yep.
before. So I guess that's what I get in a way. But anyway, um I love what you said there, and I want to kind of touch on the part. I'm stumbling a little bit here, but I want to go back to where you talked about the initial realization where I have to make a change,
Mhm.
where you realize that, I've hit my limit and there's really not more that I can do. But if I try to carry on like this, it's just never going to work. And I just kind of want to talk about like where kind of specifically your head was in that moment, because like I know obviously your neurons were probably firing 2 million miles per hour and you had absolutely no clue which direction was even up.
Mhm.
But I just want to kind of hear it from you in a sense, like what was going through your head that at that time, and how did you kind of like keep yourself level headed to like, then go and make a decision?
Mhm. Yeah, so I was definitely just freaking out. I can vividly remember I was sitting in my dorm. It was probably like 1 in the morning and I just felt helpless because there was no one else that can help me do the work I needed to do. It just had to come from me. And yeah, I just didn't really know what direction to turn. And as I'm a very type A person, so everything needs to be done perfectly. And usually, like when assignments are first assigned, like I sit down and start them. I usually don't procrastinate. So I was just very out of my comfort zone. But the first thing I did was call my mom, which I think, sometimes just talking to your family, and even if they don't really have a real solution for you, my mom was just like, it'll be fine. You're going to graduate. We'll figure this out. And even after talking with her, I still kind of felt nervous about everything because, I'm already 3 weeks into the semester. I can't drop a class because they're all ones that I need to graduate. And I just wasn't really sure what to do. But the first thing I kind of thought of was asking for extensions, which I initially was like very embarrassed to do. I had never asked for an extension in my life before. And, I emailed my professors and I was just like, I take this very seriously. Is there anything you can do? And that was, I think, the first point where I had a lot of reassurance. All my professors were like, Hallie, we know you're a good student. We know this is a tough semester and you're kind of spread thin. So take it day by day, take the time you need, and just keep in touch. So after that moment, I started to feel better, but there was still work to be done to kind of fix my schedule and my way of working to make it more of a sustainable process.
Yeah, 100%. And I think really that's really the most important thing in like a scenario like that is kind of taking that time, whether that be like through a conversation with someone else, but kind of taking that step back for just a moment and kind of looking at it like I guess you could say almost like in a transaction standpoint. Like you take a step back and you really look at everything in terms of like what is this doing for me? How important is it to me? Does it need to be here? Looking at everything in the sense of like what can I take out? How can I like look at this to make this flow? Like you said, like the most efficient.
Yep.
And really in doing that, like, you decide that you had to ask for extensions. And that's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
So kudos to you for that, by the way. But just realizing that like you had to swallow your pride for a second and then just say like, this is where I'm at and I really need your help. And I'm really glad that like here at Westminster we have nice enough professors to really help you out with that. I
Mhm.
know some places professors may not be quite as forgiving, but I will say that usually, at least in my opinion, if somebody approaches me just authentically saying like, look, I'm grinding here and I'm just really struggling and I can't get this done. Could you please help me out? I'm gonna give that person a hand.
Yeah.
And I hope that any decent human or professor or anybody out there would also think the same. But yeah, 100%. So kind of looking back a little bit, I know you mentioned that you've always kind of been like a type A student, a couple
Mhm.
different things that way. What do you think kind of just in your experience as a student so far, not necessarily just college, but what do you think has really kind of had the greatest impact on your success in that regard so far?
Mhm. I just think having, putting so much importance into my schoolwork has always, paid off. I just think that it's helped me grow a lot. At the end of high school, I thought I knew a lot of things. I graduated with a good GPA and things like that, but it's amazing how much more you can grow. And I think a lot of that is attributed to my dedication to my work and making sure that anything that I do, I want it to be my best quality work. I don't just want to do something to turn it in and be done with it. I want to make sure that, if I'm putting all this time into something, that it's actually something I'm proud of. And I think working that way has really helped me grow as a student, as a person, and a young professional.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that really when we get into these scenarios where, you're trying to do everything possible to kind of market yourself,
Mhm.
and you're kind of taking on all of these things that sometimes it gets really hard not to kind of get lost in the kerfuffle, if you will,
Mhm.
where everything kind of just gets messy sometimes,
Yeah.
but you kind of just have to keep going, like
Yep.
for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
But in those times like that, and I know you're somebody that's both active on campus as well as off, really in those moments, like what do you use personally to kind of stay motivated, keep your head on straight, and just kind of just keep trudging through?
Yeah. So I would say early on in my like undergraduate career, I was really good about taking time for myself and kind of having a good separation between school and just like my normal life. And that always paid off for me. just because, I was able to feel like, all right, got this stuff done. Now I can relax, do whatever I want to do. And I started finding myself, especially this summer with my internship. It was a very hectic internship. And, I wanted to get everything done that I could in the, short 12 weeks that I was there. So I was working pretty much 12-hour days. The last week, I was staying up half the night to get these projects done. And that's when I started to really just not spend time for myself and mix like my work life and my personal life. And I think that's also where, one of the biggest issues that I had at the beginning of this semester is I was doing work all day. I wasn't leaving my dorm. I sat in the same chair every day and it was driving me nuts. So, one of my professors recommended, and at first I was like, yeah, right. Like, I don't have enough time as it is. How am I going to take time for myself? But he was like, take an hour a day. You don't have to do anything extravagant. Like, but put your schoolwork aside and go do something else. Because when you start to mix, your school life and your personal life, you just feel like you're constantly working and you're constantly exhausted. And my professor also said, he was like, cut yourself off at like 9:30 at night. He was like, you don't have something done? He said, ask for help. He was like, there is no point in stressing yourself out, past the point of no return and totally exhausting yourself, because then your performance, following that is just not going to be as good as it typically would.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I think that for some of us, especially like we've spoke about a lot so far, when you have so much going on, when your plate is full,
Mhm.
it's really hard to make sure that you take time and turn that off.
Yep.
Where and a lot of us, one of the things that I struggle the most is like obviously I have things that I want to accomplish. I have big things, on my mind a lot.
Mhm.
And it's really difficult to then take time and do something else because you almost know that there's something else you should be doing.
Yeah.
And it's really difficult sometimes to kind of walk that line because you're like exhausted and you're like, I really do need to take a step away from this, but at the same time you're like, well, then I'm losing an hour and I'm not accomplishing what I could accomplish in the next hour. And it's
Right.
like this weird I'm trying to think of a good way to describe it. It's like a weird cycle
Yeah.
that you really just kind of get stuck in and then you never end up like relaxing regardless, because then if you take that time off, you're thinking about what you should be doing. And if you continue doing that, you're like stressed out because you're not taking the time for yourself.
Yeah.
And really it's just bad
Yeah.
for for your mental and for your productivity.
Yeah.
So what would you say, especially being someone that's been, like you said, gone through these issues, been busy throughout your college career so far? What would you say to someone that's either coming in now or somebody that's just in college as well and struggling to kind of manage those things? What advice would you give to that person as far as, almost structuring a work-life balance
Mhm.
in, in college?
Yeah. So, one of the best pieces of advice that I got, and something that I have implemented and I do feel like it works really well, is to focus on one thing at a time. I know that like third week of school when I was really struggling, I had every assignment I had due running through my mind, trying to figure out how I could like do them all at once. And that just doesn't work. Obviously, you can't work on like five things at once. So recently I've just been focusing on one thing, and the other things don't get done, you just have to ask for help. And I think my second, piece of advice is to not be afraid to ask for help, because, like I had said, I'd always been a good student, always took, my work very seriously. And in that moment, like asking for help felt like defeat. So I didn't want to do it because I was like, I should be able to handle this. I didn't understand why I wasn't able to handle it. But talking to other people with, about your situation is one of the most helpful things to be able to figure out how to fix it. So if you keep that all internal and you don't share, your struggles with anyone, you're never going to be able to fix it, or at least not quickly, which I needed to do since the semester was ramping up. So yeah, I would definitely say focus on one thing at a time. And if at that point, you're still struggling, ask for help and for advice. Because I mean, especially at Westminster, like you said, we're really lucky with our professors. Every time I've asked for an extension, even if I've just asked for like another 12 hours or for another day, for the most part, all my professors are like, Hallie, take as long as you need. Like, we've seen your work in the past. We know you'll get it done. Don't kill yourself over schoolwork. So it's always good to vocalize when you are struggling because likely there's people out there that will give you the advice that you're looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that I really like that you just mentioned is that not being afraid to ask for help, but taking that point and reverting back to when you got overwhelmed, you called your mom.
Mhm.
And what I actually really like about that is that it doesn't necessarily have to be somebody who knows like every little thing about what you're going through.
Mhm.
Sometimes all it really takes is an ear.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not going to say that it's not useful to have somebody who knows exactly what you're going through, but what
Yeah.
I'm saying is that sometimes just having that person that you can lay everything out and explain what you're going through helps you wrap your own mind around what's going on, and honestly helps you subconsciously make decisions that you don't even know you're making as to what you need to do to fix whatever issue that is.
Mhm.
I'm somebody that's had numerous conversations with my mom during, different issues throughout, my collegiate career too. So
Yeah.
no judgment here, but yeah, I really do love that point that you made, just because I don't know about your mom, but like my mom was not a businesswoman. Like my mom was genuinely like she was meant to be a mom, and that is what she's done her entire life. And she really never got an opportunity to do much else, but at the same time, like she loved every minute of it. So, you know, that's where like she doesn't exactly understand all of the business world, but she gives me an ear
Yeah.
and she gives me encouragement and she helps motivate me to continue to do, whatever it is I'm doing or do it better or any of those things. And, in essence, that's just her being a mom.
Yeah.
But point being that, you know, regardless of her not necessarily understanding every little bit of that situation, she's still, there and she provides what you need to hear at that moment in time.
Yeah. I would say too, like, when I started having those struggles, I was like, I can't be on my phone. Like, I don't have time to talk to anyone. And that was one of the worst things I did was that I isolated myself. And although it seems like a waste of time, I really took for granted, like, my best friend, Kendall, she is at Penn State Law now. And that, had been really difficult for me just to be here without her because she lived right across the hall. And so that was very isolating in itself. But when I stopped, like, taking the time just to talk to people, like, just on Snapchat about stupid stuff, like, that made my situation worse because like I said, I was keeping everything inside. And even though I'm sure Kendall over there at Penn State Law doesn't have the time to fix my problems or fully understand them, just being able to like get it out was so helpful and just having someone to talk to about it. So that will be something I never do again is isolate myself like that because even if you don't feel like you have time, it's important to just, surround yourself with people that, support you and can build you up in those times like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think another one of the most important things that I learned going kind of through situations like these, one of the pieces of advice I received from a mentor was the best way to add to your life is to subtract from your life. And that's one of the things that I kind of speak all the time because I'm always kind of like I've really gotten better over time at like we mentioned earlier, kind of looking at things in like a transactional way as far as like what you can add and subtract to your own equation
Mhm.
and how to make that most efficient. Where I will, take that step back and look at what activities I have going on in my life right now and which ones I need to prioritize, which ones, are most important,
Yep.
and which ones I could potentially take a step back from or ask for an extension or just little things like that. Because sometimes, like even in the professional world, you can essentially ask for extensions.
Right. Mhm.
Where like another one of the really important things I like that you said earlier was that like the professors are going to understand. And in most cases, if they've been in your shoes, whether they're your boss, your professor, your parent, whatever, if
Mhm.
they've been in that situation, they can pretty much understand what you're going through emotionally at the time. Whether or not they choose to ignore it, I can't necessarily predict.
Yeah.
But if they have been in your shoes before, they're going to understand. And most of the time, they're willing to lend a hand. And
Mhm.
that's one of the things that we've talked about a lot on the show as well for students who are afraid to reach out to a potential mentor or afraid to ask professionals for help. If they've ever been in a situation like similar to what you're going through right now, they're going to relate to that and they're going to want to help you out. So that's kind of like you said, not being afraid to ask for help.
Mhm.
You can ask for help from people that are above you as well. It doesn't necessarily always have to be somebody who, like we mentioned, like our moms. Like I'm not necessarily saying they're below us, but at the same time, like at this point, I know a little bit more about what I'm going through than what she does.
Right.
Where at the same time, like you can ask somebody who knows more than you know.
Mhm.
Now, those are often professional people. They might not quite have as much time, but if they are willing to make that time for you and lay out that conversation and help you out, then that's extremely important. And you should keep those people close.
Yeah.
Is what I was trying to say.
Mhm.
All right. So yeah, we've talked about a lot of great things so far. And really, I mean, we could start winding it down if you want. However, we want to do it here. Lots of great points so far, and I really love really everything that we've touched on so far. So I guess kind of winding it down a little bit. The big question that I always like to ask the guests is if you could go back and have a conversation with yourself and in that ground zero
Mhm.
moment, geez, I'm messing up today. Um, and yours actually wasn't that long ago, but still the why can't I think of the word? The analogy still fits.
Mhm.
Anyway, if you could go back and have a conversation with yourself in that time, what do you think you would say?
I would probably just say everything's gonna be okay. You know, I for some reason got in this headspace like I'm not gonna graduate. I mean, knowing myself, like I like to get good grades and I feel disappointed when I don't. So just the thought of like not performing to my best ability was just like really weighing on me. But I would just tell myself like it's gonna be fine. There's gonna be ups and downs throughout the rest of the semester, and got like a couple weeks left, and it's gonna be a busy one. But you know, all you can do is try your best. And there's no point in feeling guilty over, you know, maybe not taking advantage of every opportunity that you can. And it's just better to applaud yourself for every small accomplishment that you make, and keep moving forward because everything will be fine. Nothing detrimental is going to happen. I know I'm going to graduate in December, and I just wished I could have told myself, calm down and take a step back and just look at it in a bigger view and try and take a more methodical approach to solving it. But I know that's probably easier said than done.
Yeah, I think a lot of like looking back on a lot of instances where I was kind of in a similar headspace. Um, Weirdest thing, I guess, like I feel like I can remember myself like trying to encourage myself in those moments, like saying it's gonna be okay, but it's almost like the negative side of you like picks up the positive side of you and just like throws it around on the ground and like kicks it and and then it just disappears. So the negative side just completely takes over. But point being that like man, I'm struggling today. um when you're in that point where you're kind of completely out of your comfort zone and you're trying to encourage yourself and it's not working and it's not working, it's completely okay to try and find that other source of motivation, that other person, that other resource, whether that be a book, a podcast, anything like that. It's okay to look for those resources that can kind of help you unplug from that scenario and
Mhm.
reset your mindset as far as what you want to do.
Yeah.
um, had another thought, but I completely lost it. April is going to have fun editing this one. Uh, oh man. Um, so Hallie, if any students out there kind of just related to anything that you said today, as far as your story, just kind of any personal experiences that you went through and shared today, what would be the best way for someone to follow up and get in touch with you?
You could definitely message me on LinkedIn, even on social media too. I'm on there quite a bit. But yeah, just, send me a message. Talking about this kind of stuff makes me feel so much better. And the more that I've talked about it, there's a lot of students right now, especially at Westminster, that feel like they're in a very similar position. And I just feel like if we all just, come together and rant and get it off our chest, it's one of the best things we can do. So yeah, definitely like LinkedIn, um, or any of my social media, which are pretty much just my names. But yeah.
Yeah, and I really love the point that you just made kind of about having that community where
Mm,
you can kind of go to and just rant about these things.
mm,
And we've talked a lot about different ways of like different forms of support today, but still, like I really like that last little point that you mentioned, just kind of that there's a lot of people at this similar stage that pretty much know exactly how you're feeling and kind of just being able to get into a circle, I guess you could say, and just
mm.
let it out is honestly more enlightening than you might think. And I remembered my last point, and it's that you talked about a couple of times kind of feeling like a failure in those moments, not necessarily a failure, but you felt disappointed.
Yeah.
And I think combining that point with the other point that you made about continuing to move forward
Mm,
is one of the most important things that I heard from actually previous guests on here, and he called it failing forward.
mm,
So, and in that um, analogy, what I believe that he meant was that despite whatever is going wrong, despite not getting the result that you had been pursuing, that's okay.
mhm.
And failure is a point to learn.
Yep.
And it is a time where, now you're able to take this experience and learn from it. And one of the things that I personally kind of like about failure is it makes it hard enough that you won't do it again.
Right.
And that's where we get that severe disappointment. It really weighs on us that that sheer uncomfortability, I think, puts you in a point that you won't make that same mistake again, which is one of the things that I like about it. Wow, don't get me wrong, it still sucks.
Yeah.
It can it can have a different kind of positive outlook depending on how you look at it, and that's where you take that lesson, whatever it was in there, and then you continue to move forward. And I believe that in essence is what he meant by failing forward.
Yeah.
But with that, Hallie, thank you again. I really do appreciate you coming on today. You'll
Yeah.
be our third or fourth student episode now. So it's been super nice to kind of get a refreshing perspective on here
Mhm.
and try to relate to a lot of other people that are in our shoes right now. So I'm really hoping that that gains some traction with, our demographic, but, it's kind of a test. So we're going to see how it goes.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much
Anyway,
for having me.
yeah, absolutely. Anyway, thank you so much again. I really, really appreciate it. And with that, everybody, always remember this is Dream Chasers Ground Zero, and there's nowhere to go from here but up. Thanks, Allie.
Thank you.